All right, so in this lecture, we're going to talk about conditionals and flow control, like how we would control the flow of a program by testing whether various things are true or false. Um, so the conditional operators in Julia are pretty much the same as most programming languages. So a double equal sign to test if two things are equal to each other. The not equal sign is exclamation point equals, greater than, less than, greater than, equal to, less than, equal to. I have some examples here with obvious outputs. So 5 is equal to 5, 5 is not equal to 6. In this case, I designed it so that they're all equal, that they all result in true, right? So just a couple of simple examples there. You can negate any operation by placing the exclamation point in front of it. It's a good idea. I think you have to use parentheses in this case. So, basically 5 equals 5 evaluates to true. So we can negate that to false by putting the exclamation sign in front of it. We can test subsets to check if one element is a subset of another. So in this case, I have a list, or I'm sorry, an array of integers, 1, 2, 3. Checking to see if 1 is in it. It is true. This also works for tuples. For dictionaries, depending on if we want the keys or the values, right? So in this case, I create a dictionary. Just has keyword value pairs. Key 1 is 1, key 2 is 2, and key 3 is 3. So if we want to test to see if one of the keys is in the dictionary, then there's a function called hasKey. So we just call that with the argument being the dictionary and then the key that we want to test. If we want to test one of the values, well, we just turn it into an array, right? So if we call values on dict, that returns an array of the values, 1, 2, 3, and then we can just return to our in test like we had for an array above. For strings, we have to use the function occurs in, right? So in this case, if you want to check to see if a substring hello occurs in hello world, then we use this occurs in function. Again, all of these can be negated with the exclamation point. We can combine multiple conditional statements using the ampersands. So double ampersand means it's the and operator, and the double pipe is the or operator. So in this case, if 9 is less than or equal to 9, of course that's true because 9 is equal to 9, and 9 is less than 10. So those two things are both true, therefore this returns true. These kind of things use the following Boolean logic. So true and true is true, true and false is false, false and false is false, true or true is true, true or false is true, false or false is false. That's common Boolean logic. And we can use as many of these as we want in combination with each other, but it's a good idea to use parentheses to get the order of operations for clarity, right? So in this case, true and true is false, so that's false or true, which returns true, right? So we can use these tests, these conditional tests, in if, else if, and else statements. And so in this case, I create a function that takes an argument x and basically tests to see if it's positive. And if it is positive, then we just print x is positive, right? So we can call that on the number 5, and of course, it prints x is positive. However, we call it on -5, that's not true, right? And the function just exits without printing anything. So if we wanted to modify this to test if x is negative and print and x is negative, then we can add an else if statement. So if x is greater than 0, then x is positive. Else if x is less than 0, print x is negative, right? And so, of course, then now that works for the -5 case. However, what about 0, right? So again, if we test if x is positive or negative, you notice that we used greater than or less than signs there, not greater than or equal to or less than or equal to. So in the case that x is identically 0, then the function will again exit without printing anything to the screen. So we could, for this kind of case, we could also add the else clause, which means other is kind of otherwise, right? So if neither of the other cases are true, then you print this, right? And so in this case, if we test this function, we get x is 0 for the argument x is 0. We can nest multiple if statements together, of course. So in this case, we're going to write a function truncate that takes a value x and then tests to see if x is greater than that value. And in this case, it also allows you to truncate value could be the argument nothing, right? Which is like the null variable in Julia. So in this case, the first test is to see if it's nothing, and then otherwise it truncates the value appropriately according to these nested if statements, right? So also notice here I'm using this function actually returns a value. It's not just printing to the screen. And I'm using these multiple return statements. So the function will actually return when any of these things is true and it hits this return statement. It won't test anything else. It will immediately exit, right? So if truncate value is not nothing and it's less than truncate value, then it's going to return the truncate value, right? So to give you a couple examples, so in this case, x is 5 and the truncate value is 4, so it's going to return 5. In this second case, x is minus 4 and the truncate value is 0, so it's going to return 0. And in the final case, the x is 5 and the truncate value is nothing, so it's going to return 5. We can also, Julia, like most languages, has a ternary operator. So it's just kind of a shorthand if-else statement that you can use like this. So it uses and this is true in C and most languages uses the identical syntax here. So you have a test followed by a question mark. And if the test is true, then whatever's returned there. Otherwise, the colon there separates the else clause, right? So an example of this, we can have a ternary truncate, which again basically takes two values, x and a truncate value. And so here's the test. If x is less than the truncate value, then return the truncate value. Otherwise, return x. And again, so this is an identical implementation minus the nothing clause from before that shows how to use this.